Welcome to episode 8 of the Total Sports Northumberland podcast. I'm Jeff Gard, bringing you interviews each week from Northumberland County and beyond. You can find the podcast each week at totalsportsnorthumberland.ca and stream or download on Podbean, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. In just a few minutes, I'll be chatting with a great local athlete from Port Hope who has excelled in a number of sports, including gymnastics, Grace Jenkins. Grace will also join me for my interview with 2004 Olympic champion in artistic gymnastics, Kyle Schufeld. First, in news you can find at totalsportsnorthumberland.ca, the Coburg Saxons are gearing up for the rugby season. At this time, only flag rugby can be offered, but the organization anticipates having players back on the pitch the week of July 5th to 11th. The Saxons offer mini rugby for the age groups U8, U10, U12, and U14, junior rugby for U16 and U18, and senior rugby. Training sessions are held at Westwood Park in Coburg. Registration is now open. Check the story online for the link. The Coburg Angels Girls Softball Association will be hosting fastball development sessions for players in U12 and younger on Monday nights, hopefully beginning the week of June 28th. The cost will be $50 per player for the sessions, which will be geared towards all ages and skill levels and focus on keeping players active and engaged in fastball. Registration is available at coburgangels.ca. The Ontario Hockey League Priority Selection Draft was held last week with the first 3 rounds Friday night, followed by rounds 4 to 15 on Saturday. Coburg's Ethan Miedema of the Quinte Red Devils U16 AAA team was selected 4th overall by the Windsor Spitfires. Here is some of my conversation with Ethan about the accomplishment. Ethan, congratulations on being selected 4th overall by the Windsor Spitfires. Just describe the moment of hearing your name called.
Yeah, I really had no words. I was so speechless, and overall, such a great day with the family, and looking forward to getting down to Windsor to meet everyone.
At what point did you actually know you were going to be taken by the Spitfires? Because there was a lot of talk in advance, especially that you were going to be a high pick, and I'm sure if you weren't taken by Windsor, you would have went next to Kingston. But at what point did you know Windsor was going to take you for sure?
Yeah, I knew a few days before, obviously kept it quiet, but I'm really happy in Windsor, and again, just so happy.
Yeah, what excites you from what you've learned about the city of Windsor and the Spitfires?
Yeah, I haven't been down there yet, but it seems like a great hockey town. The rink's huge, one of the nicest rinks in the league. Overall, can't wait to play in front of their great fans, and I've been told by some of their players that it's a great spot to play, so just looking forward to getting down there for the start of the season.
Describe yourself as a player and what you think you can bring to the Windsor roster.
Yeah, some attributes that kind of describe me would be hardworking, determined, and focused, but I would say my strengths would be my IQ and vision. I think that's my best strength, and then kind of my secondaries would be my speed and my hands, and how I kind of use all 3 of those to create plays for myself and my teammates in all 3 zones.
You were taken 4th overall, but what was it like watching the draft continue as you had, a number of other teammates waiting to hear their names called?
Yeah, like you said, I wanted to support all my teammates and all the boys, so yeah, really just watching all the Quinte guys, my teammates get drafted, and I'm really super excited for those guys, and as well as my new Windsor Spitfires teammates that have been drafted to Windsor like me. Can't wait to get started with all them, and looking forward to camp.
Windsor, which was having a great season when the OHL shut down in 2020, normally would have drafted later in the first round, but received the high pick due to a draft lottery. I spoke with Spitfires general manager Bill Bowler about the opportunity the club had to draft Ethan Miedema. So Bill, the Spitfires had the 4th overall selection. Describe being able to select a player like Ethan Miedema.
Yeah, when we received the good fortune of the 4th overall pick, we knew we felt fortunate and lucky, and then to have Ethan sitting there staring us at with the 4th pick, it was just a great moment for our organization, and a young man with this type of upside and ability. It's obviously a huge piece to add to our group.
Been a challenging year with no games being played, but what were you able to learn about Ethan in advance of the draft through video and just talking to coaches and scouts?
Yeah, so we think we have a good handle on the kids before they get into their minor midget year. Every time he went to the rink, for me, he just kept improving. And the video, you just see a guy with offensive ability, and he has all the tools, and so it was quite easy. And then when you dive deeper into the character and the drive and the work ethic, it was we just can't be more thrilled.
What from his game do you think will really enable him to be successful at the OHL level, and what he can bring to the Spitfires?
Yeah, he's just a playmaker. He finds a way to generate offense, and again, to defend a man with those types of skills, and then to have a frame to be able to execute and get to the areas to create offense. It's a rare combination to have that type of size and skill, and for me, this will translate well into the OHL and then eventually to the National Hockey League.
And just finally for you, Bill, Ethan will be going from a small town like Cobourg to Windsor. What are the tools that, like your organization has in place to help them adjust not only in hockey, but school and living with a new family and all that comes with the OHL experience?
Yeah, it's a huge transition for any athlete to move into a new community, into a new team, into a new environment. Player welfare and our culture is something we take very seriously, and obviously Ethan will be welcomed in and into our group. And when things do, people take different times to arrive and feel more comfortable. But as stated, our player environment and our culture is something is paramount, and it's the most important part of being a Spitfire. Already his teammates have welcomed Ethan, and knowing what type of young man he is, he will find his way here quickly in Windsor, in our community, and on our hockey team.
In total, 7 Quinte Red Devils players were selected in the draft, including Cobourg's Christopher Bridges, who was taken by the Guelph Storm in the 9th round, 162nd overall. Congratulations to both Ethan and Christopher on being drafted. If you want local sports news from Northumberland County, check out totalsportsnorthumberland.ca. You can also follow us on Facebook and Twitter. My guest this week on Athlete Spotlight excels in a number of sports, including gymnastics, Grace Jenkins. Grace, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
I mentioned gymnastics, but it's also rugby, track, cross country, and even swimming. So I just wanted to start off by asking you, what is it that you love about sports? Because it's quite a variety that you are involved in.
Well, I just love to be active, and being physically active also helps with my mental health and everything like that. And I've been in sports since I was really young. So,
what was the first sport you remember doing?
I started out with dance when I was 3 years old, and I didn't really take to that. So my parents decided to get me into gymnastics, and I liked it a lot better.
Okay, so you've been doing gymnastics a long time. How long do you think you've been doing gymnastics for now?
I started gymnastics when I was 3. So wow. I've been doing it for 13 years.
Okay. Yeah, so you train with the Hearts Gymnastic Club in Port Hope. Just talk about what it is you love about gymnastics so much.
Well, I love the feeling of like flying and the adrenaline rush you get from doing gymnastics. And I love feeling like strong and powerful. So all those things apply in gymnastics. And then it's also taught me a lot in life. So at Hearts Gymnastics, I learned like respect and discipline and just how to be not even just a focused person, but a focused athlete.
Do you remember much from the early years about, like when you're getting started in gymnastics, what are kind of the basics that you learn?
Well, it's a lot about technique because it's easier to get the harder skills once you have the technique down. So it was just like pointed toes and straight legs and stuff like that. So just all the basics.
At what point do you remember it becoming just that much more challenging in terms of what you were learning and, just kind of taking it to the next level competitively?
Well, I joined the competitive program at Hearts when I was 8 years old with my coach Bev. So that's when I started getting prepared for competitions and actually competing against other gymnasts.
Are there any results you have that are highlights?
A few years ago, I won silver at provincial championships on the floor exercise. So that's out of all the gymnasts in Ontario my level. And then I haven't gotten to compete recently due to COVID. So I'm hoping to get some more accomplishments later on.
So talk about that floor exercise. Was that something you always just felt like you were really strong on? And what were the challenges of that?
Yeah, floor always gives me just a chance to perform. And I always find myself that I'm least nervous when I'm doing floor because it's not like I can really fall off of anything and I get a chance to be powerful and not hold back. But it definitely has some challenges. Like you have music that you have to follow, so you have to stay on time, keep your rhythm, and then you're presenting as well. So you want to keep that smile on your face and just have a nice presentation overall.
Yeah, so a lot involved to
Yeah.
consider. When you talk about not having to worry about falling, talk about some of the other, I guess, disciplines of gymnastics that are a little more challenging in that regard.
Yeah. So I would say my strongest events are floor and vault. So previously I would have struggled a little bit more on beam and bars just because I would have to figure out I learned how to figure out to get into my zone to compete because on beam when I was younger, I used to shake, not because necessarily I was nervous because of how excited I was and how much adrenaline I had before competing. So my biggest challenge was probably to learn to overcome that.
Can you talk a little bit about the level you're at now and what you're striving for?
Yeah, so right now I'm currently in level 6. So it's the last level before you can go to national levels. So that starts at level 7. And my goal for the next time I compete is to hopefully go level 7. So there's just more skills and a higher difficulty of the skills that you're doing. So that's what I hope to achieve next.
What's your ultimate goal in gymnastics?
Well, since I was younger, I always watched NCAA. So I would love to be able to do college gymnastics in the future because it always just looks like so much fun.
Great. I said you're in so many different sports. Is gymnastics the main one?
Yes, gymnastics was the one that I started with, and it's the one that I currently spend the most time training for. And then as I got older, I started to try more things thanks to my parents who let me just kind of experience all of the different sports. So that's how I got branched out into other sports as well.
How often would you train in a normal year? Like you said, it's been a while since you've been able to
Yeah.
experience that, but in a normal year, what would your training schedule be like?
Last time I was training, I would train for 4 days a week for 5 hours each and sometimes more. So that was kind of like the minimum. So 20 hours a week.
You mentioned how difficult it's been the past year. Just describe what it's been like to go through that and what you still have been able to do, I guess,
Mhm.
athletically to at least help in that regard.
Yeah, well, I am fortunate enough that my dad's a personal trainer. So I'm currently working out at his gym for 6 days a week. And then I'm also, on top of that, I'm running for 6 days a week. So I'm still one of the fortunate and lucky athletes who's able to keep working out and keep training, not quite on the scale that I was before, but just to keep me active. But it's definitely been a little challenging, especially with gymnastics, to start and then stop again because I would just starting to get new skills and then I'd have to kind of rest up and then try and get back at it.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be tough in any sport to have this kind of a layoff, but yeah, you make a good point when it's something like gymnastics, when they're really working on specific skills and routines. Describe the challenge of that.
Well, there's also a certain window for gymnastics. So my age would like limit most people, but I'm trying to keep an open mind about just trying to take care of my body so I can keep doing gymnastics for as long as I can because I love the sport. But as you get older, I know I'm not that old. I'm only 16. Um, but it's definitely gets a little more challenging.
What's it like to have a dad as a personal trainer? And, you know, what are some of the ways you push yourself in the gym when, again, you have that support?
Yeah, it's really great actually because I just am in love with being active and working out. So he kind of helps to like fuel my drive and my passion to help me keep going all the time. So it's really nice.
What are some of the key things you focus on? And, what are you most impressed with that you've been able to accomplish?
Well, as a gymnast, I need to work out my full body, so that's what I've been training on right now. Um, but I've also been starting to lift weights, heavier weights. So like my squat and my bench and my deadlift have all improved over the break, which is really great.
Well, I want to ask you about rugby. How did you get into rugby? You go from gymnastics to rugby at St. Mary Catholic Secondary School in Coburg, and then all of a sudden you make the provincial team as well with Rugby Ontario.
Yeah.
So talk about your rugby experience.
Well, my family has always been into rugby, so it was always something that I wanted to try. So I got into it once I went to St. Mary's because the coach at St. Mary's was really encouraging, and my family was all like, "Well, we've done it before, so you should give it a try. Like, we think you'd like it." And I tried it, and I really loved it. So I was like, "Well, I might as well keep going and add this as one of the sports that I'm doing."
What did you, I've talked to other rugby players. It was quite a challenge to learn the sport at first. What was it like for you?
Yeah, once you um learn the rules and everything, it's much easier to pick up on. But at first, it can definitely be a little confusing, especially coming from playing other sports. It's completely unlike any other sport that I've played before. So it's definitely a learning curve.
What were some of the, like, what positions do you play, and what were some of the challenges kind of learned to overcome in the sport?
Well, since I am a gymnast, my coaches and like my family members always kind of wanted me to be the last one to have the ball. So I would play winger. So I was kind of out of most contact range because they didn't want me to necessarily get hurt with the level of gymnastics I was doing. Um, but in the future, I'd love to play a different position just to try out different things to see where I feel most comfortable at.
What was it like going from gymnastics to all of a sudden being on the field and seeing a contact sport like that up close and possibly being involved in it?
Yeah, it went really well. Gymnastics taught me like most of my fundamental skills to help me be able to do other sports and excel at other sports. So I had some help there, but I enjoyed the physical contact aspect of it too, just because I like to feel powerful and just to push myself as far as I can.
Also at St. Mary's, track and cross country, that's obviously beneficial for you in gymnastics, but still a lot of time you would put into competing on the track and running. Talk about the events you've competed in. We'll start with on the track.
Yeah, so unfortunately in ninth grade, I didn't get to do track at St. Mary's because of COVID, but I started running track in the fourth grade, and then the last race that I ran was eighth grade, and I run the 4 and 200 meter.
Okay. So you're hoping to get the opportunity eventually
Yes.
to do that at the high school level too. What kind of success did you have in elementary school in those events?
So from fifth grade to eighth grade, we had KPR like district finals. So I won first in the 400 every year that I competed in that event. And then for the 200, at the district finals, I would usually come second.
How about cross country? I'm guessing you were able to compete at least once in cross country so far at St. Mary's.
Yeah, I got to compete in my ninth grade year, and it was really nice because it was me and a group of three of my other friends who were on the team, the grade 9 girls team, and we actually ended up making it all the way to OFSA.
Yeah, it's quite a feat because cross country, I've talked about this before too. Like it's individual in a way, but it's such a team sport.
Yeah,
Hopefully, like it's so much better to be on a team, isn't it? That
I
qualifies.
I wouldn't have been able to make it to offset without my teammates, so I owe a lot to them.
Yeah, what's it like to be part of that experience? And you would have learned that like every place counts because it's the lowest
Hmm.
combined score, so every place counts, doesn't it? So you're
Yeah,
obviously rooting on your teammates.
yeah. It was great to be a part of a team as well because gymnastics is like an individual sport. So anytime I was a part of a team, it was always something different. And I just love, I mean, at gymnastics, we're all still a team, even though we compete individually. But just that aspect of cheering and encouragement and just the positive environment is really
Yeah, I definitely want to talk about your swimming too because
nice.
I understand you've won a CASA gold medal, which that's the Central Ontario Championships for high school. So you'd start with the local Kawartha and then move on
Mhm.
to CASA. But you never swam competitively, right? So talk
No.
about winning that gold medal and having success in high school.
It was funny because I only joined swimming as like rehab because I had broken my wrist previously that year. And my coaches and my parents were telling me that I should start to ease back into stuff. And the swimming team opportunity came up. So I decided to try it out. And at first, I didn't believe that I won at Costa. My coaches kept telling me, and I was like, there's no way, like, because I'd never competed in swimming before. So I didn't even understand how the competitions necessarily worked. So it was a big
Yeah.
surprise.
What going into it, just kind of talk about the benefits you were just hoping to get from swimming, let alone win a big medal like
Yeah.
that.
Swimming was like I said previously, it was good for my wrist and it was really good cardio. And like I said, I love all sports. So it was just another thing that I had the opportunity to try out. So I took the opportunity.
Yeah, you're just a big sports fan, right? So even in
Yeah.
pro sports, I understand you're a big fan of like Toronto teams, the Maple Leafs,
Yeah.
Blue Jays, and Raptors. Talk about your love of professional sports.
Yeah. I just love watching it, especially the highlights. Some of the crazy things that the professional athletes are able to do. I hope to get to a level like that someday and accomplish some of the many things that they accomplish.
You've competed in so many sports locally. Are there any coaches you want to mention? Because coaches are such a big part of what you do in sports.
Yeah, so at Hearts Gymnastics, my coach is Bev Laviolette, and she has coached me for a very long time. She had always wanted me on her competitive team, and she's helped me to become the person I am today, not just athletically, but also like who I am. So she's been a big part of my athletic career and just growing up in general and maturing. And my dad, as a personal trainer, has helped me come a long way. And then all the teachers that I've had throughout middle school, elementary school, and high school have helped me to get to where I am today.
Well, Grace, stick around. You're going to join me for the interview with my next guest, Kyle Schufelt. If you know an athlete who should be in the spotlight, go to totalsportsnorthumberland.ca and fill out the form on the Athlete Spotlight page. They can join me on the podcast to talk about their sports background and also join me to chat with my other featured guest on that episode. My next guest was the Olympic champion in artistic gymnastics in 2004 in Athens. He just released a new book, Make It Happen: My Story of Gymnastics, the Olympics, and the Power of Positive Sport. Kyle Schufelt. Kyle, thanks so much for joining me.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me on the show.
Exciting week for you. You just released the book yesterday. Just talk about the immediate feedback you've received.
Well, I've been blown away by the response. There's been so much positive feedback. And last night, somebody sent me a picture and they said, "You've gotten a #1 on Amazon under the Olympic category." So that's pretty exciting. You know, it's very much like when I was in my gymnastics career or when I decided to open a gym. You put all this time and this effort and you're persistent and you just keep showing up and keep doing the work. And then finally you get it done, and it's relieving. And it's also there's a lot of joy.
So I've been speaking with a local gymnast and just great all-around athlete, 16-year-old Grace Jenkins from Port Hope. So please say hi to Grace.
Hi, Grace. Welcome, welcome. It's nice to meet
Hi.
you.
Nice to meet you too.
I first want to get your opinion, Kyle, on why gymnasts make such great athletes, because I want to give you a little background on Grace. High-level gymnast, you're at level 6, Grace. High-level rugby player on the provincial team for the province of Ontario. Excels in track and cross country, and won a big gold medal in swimming as well. So just your thoughts on why gymnasts make such great athletes.
Well, I think Grace is doing an incredible job. I think most gymnasts they are great at gymnastics, and gymnastics gives the base. I think Grace might agree that gymnastics is a foundation sport. You learn strength, coordination, agility, you build courage, and you get these incredible base skills. I often say that you can transfer into any sport, and clearly that is the truth, if you do gymnastics first. It's very hard to start swimming and then become a gymnast. It's very hard to play hockey and then become a gymnast, but being a gymnast first gives you the skills to transition into an active and healthy life.
What were sports like for you when you were younger, Kyle? You did gymnastics, obviously. What were some of your other sports you enjoyed?
So when I was a kid, I did all the sports. I played hockey. My dad was a WHL Brandon Wheat King. And so, of course, as little boys went into hockey. I did swimming lessons. I did T-ball. That's where, the ball is teed up on and you swing at it. I did soccer. I did all the different sports, but gymnastics was the one that really sung. For me, I didn't really have the passion for the other sports. I liked doing them, but I didn't have that killer instinct, and I didn't think about them and dream about them. In fact, you had to drag me and bribe me with Slurpees and 5-cent candies to get to the hockey arena. But gymnastics was the one that felt right. And there was something about the environment that I just loved. It was this playground. You could turn your body upside down. You had the thrill. And I felt like it was the place where I could learn the quickest and apply myself. So gymnastics was the one for me. And when I was about 7 years old, that's when my parents said, okay, gymnastics is starting to take up a lot of your time. You can't do it all. So what do you want to do?
Well, like I said, congrats on the new book. And it was actually a long journey to finish this book, right? You began it in 2010, just released it. Can you explain what the journey was like and why there were some delays along the way?
Well, I think for anyone, you get the idea that you want to do something and you start applying yourself to it. And then it gets hard, it gets hard. And you get off track, and I decided to open a gymnastics center, and I had a family and things. I just couldn't prioritize the book. And I had written 80,000 words. I sat down for a few months and I just wrote every story, every character, everything in chronological order, trying to just sort it all out. And it just kind of sat there on a shelf. And then I enlisted my friend, a woman named Blythe Lawrence, who's an amazing gymnastics writer. And I sent all of my work to Blythe and I said, can you read this? Can you help me shape this into something? And so Blythe and I put everything into Google Docs, and then we would work back and forth, and I'd write and she'd edit and she'd send me ideas, and we just worked back and forth. And it was a process. And I think if anything, writing this book is a great reminder to me, and hopefully to the listeners at home, that you just have to keep coming back to something. If it's really important to you and it's a priority, you just have to keep coming back to it. It's going to get hard. You're going to take time away from it. It's like a meditation. You just have to keep coming back and apply yourself. And also, the reason why I was able to complete the book was because I fully committed to it in January of 2019. I had a real purpose and a reason. The sport of gymnastics is in a cultural transition. And that's a big conversation. And I had a very positive experience in sport, and I felt that needed to be shared to create a guide and a tool and a set of resources for coaches, parents, and athletes. I don't think I could have written the same book that I wrote 10 years ago. I think that it is what it is now. And I think it's got the power that it does because I've had that time to reflect and also to let the dust settle. And the most important things really came up to the surface.
Yeah, I know you wrote about how having that like a purpose, that's what really enabled you to get it done, right? Like you started it, but you didn't know why, in a way. Like that's what you wrote.
Yeah,
You weren't sure back then what the purpose was.
Right. And I didn't just want to write the book that was like, here's all the things I did.
Yeah.
I wanted to write a book with meaning, and I wanted people to leave having read it and say, like, be able to relate, be able to learn, and be able to laugh. But I wanted it to have purpose. I wanted it to have something really tangible that people could take away, not just the story of me. I wanted it to be the story of the difference makers in my career and the things that they did, specifically examples of how they created that positive experience for me in the sport.
One thing that, was I really enjoyed reading the book. It's great. One thing that really stood out very early on in the book, you talked about the time after winning gold in 2004.
Mm-hmm.
And as great as that was, it was also a struggle. You talked about how you felt like there was almost nowhere to go but down. You worried about letting people down, making mistakes. Then you suffered a devastating injury in 2007, breaking both your legs.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just interesting when you wrote, it took breaking both my legs to free me of all of that stuff that was hanging over you.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was interesting. And we can just expand on that and talk about maybe the side people don't always see with athletes. They see the glory, but maybe not the struggles as much.
The Olympics is glamorous. The World Championships, athletes are at their peak form. You don't see what happens in the day-to-day training, and Grace would understand this. You're in the gym for 4 hours a day. It's not 4 hours of fun. It's 4 hours of work. And I love that work. And as I headed into the Olympic Games in 2004, up to that point in my career, I was the chaser. I was chasing this dream and this goal, and it was like a magnet. It pulled me along. And there was a powerful momentum in that. And I also didn't have to look over my shoulder to see the people chasing me because I was the one doing the chasing. I wanted to beat the best in the world, and I wanted to prove myself. And then in 2004, everything kind of changed after that because no longer was I chasing. I was the one being chased. And that's a different set of senses. It's a different set of instincts. It's almost like you're running up a set of stairs and instead of looking towards the top, you're kind of looking over your shoulder. Simone Biles doesn't have that problem. It's her against herself. But for me, there was a lot of competition and there was a lot of guys that could have won. And so I did feel that now I was the target. And that also changes your funding. We had more money. And I realized really quickly that medals at the Olympics and at World Championships equal funding for your team. And that was a lot of expectation on my shoulders and a lot of pressure to be able to deliver on those results. So I just felt like I had switched from the athlete that was the make it happen kind of athlete. That's the title of the book because I was in this amazing place at the Olympics in 2004. I became the athlete that was like, don't screw up. I was afraid of making mistakes. And you can never be successful in sport when you're afraid of making mistakes. That's when you make them because it's implanted in your mind. And then, of course, in 2007, when I did have the injury, I landed with 2 straight legs on the floor, both of my knees hyperextended and both of my tibias fractured, and I tore ligaments, and it was nasty. But that, like you said, that freed me from the expectation because now I got put in the place where I was at the bottom again and I had to build back up. And that's where I'm at my best. When I'm chasing something, that's when I'm truly at my best. It was a remarkable experience coming back from that injury to make it to the 2008 Olympics. And I had a greater appreciation for sport and what it actually meant to be an Olympian. I think I took that for granted a little bit. And having to claw my way back to 2008, it really made me realize 2 things. Number one, what a privilege it is to be able to compete for Canada. And secondly, I took a look around at all the people that were helping me. And I had just an immense amount of gratitude. So I believe the universe works out in amazing ways. And I had lessons I needed to learn. And I was not in a good place in 2006 after winning in 2004. And I got into a much better place as I was chasing back to the Olympic Games.
Can you talk about you also competed at the 2000 Olympics at Sydney. You were very young, though. I think, were you only 18 at that time?
18 years old.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What an experience that must have been for you. But what was that like as at 18 years old, your first Olympic Games?
I like to call it my experience Olympics. I was 18. I had just gone on the World Cup circuit that year. I had never been to a Commonwealth Games or a World Championships. I was taking pictures of myself with the Olympic rings on garbage cans. I was like, I'm at the Olympics. I'm a super fan of gymnastics, and I watched every single meet, and I tape recorded every single meet since 1991 on TV. So to be there in that realm amongst all of that greatness was just like, wow, my eyes were as big as dinner plates. And at those Olympics, there was a gentleman named Igor Virov, and I write about this in the book. He won those Olympics, and I watched him compete, and I got to see him after, and I held his gold medal. And I had actually beaten him at the World Cup meets, a few of them in the lead up to the Olympics. So it really opened my eyes. Not only had I made it to the Olympic Games, I actually had beaten someone who won the Olympic Games. And that just made me believe that the possibilities were endless. And it really narrowed my focus to the 2004 Games in Athens. I didn't just want to be an Olympian, I wanted to be an Olympic champion. And I will say, being 18 years old at the Olympics, when you're done after the first day, I had a lot of fun. I consumed copious amounts of beer and went to every party. I met so many friends, and it was a blast. I had the party experience, and that allowed me in 2004 to really just hone in, be a warrior, and just go after that gold medal.
What inspired your Olympic dream? Like, when did that really come into focus for you, that was something you wanted for yourself and you thought you were capable of?
The Olympic dream really started to spark inside of me when I was about 9 years old. And it sounds so young, but I just had this knowing inside of me. There was a woman from my gymnastics club, Jennifer Wood, who qualified to the Olympics. And she represented the Altador Gymnastics Club where I trained. And she was the first Albertan athlete to qualify in gymnastics. And so to see her training and to see what she was doing in the gym every single day, the struggles she had and how she overcame them, I thought, like, if someone from my club can make it, so can I. And that's really when the dream sparked. And when I saw Jennifer on TV in '92 at the Barcelona Games, I remember pointing to the TV and yelling out loud to my aunt and uncle and my mom and dad, I know her. That's Jennifer. She goes to my club. So that's when it really sparked in my mind. I always had an aptitude, and I had a gift for gymnastics. You know, I wasn't a great hockey player, but I had a gift for gymnastics, and I did stand out, and I could learn things quickly. I was strong, I was fast, I was flexible, and I had a great air awareness. So everyone around me was always saying, oh, this kid's going to go to the Olympics. You know, oh, you're going to go to the Olympics one day. But it's when I was 9 years old that I really started to believe inside of me that, like, this is something that I really want to achieve.
One thing I don't want to miss, because you wrote about it in the book, is bullying that you faced. And how difficult was that because it's something, I mean, it's something that never changes. Kids today would still deal with that. And how difficult was it to feel like you were so good at something and then have to deal with something like bullying? And what would you say to boys and girls that what would you say to encourage them to keep them in a sport that they love, regardless of what they face on the outside?
The first thing I would say to any athlete or any person that is being deterred from other people to leave their sport because it's not a cool thing to do, or it's too girly, or it's boys only do that, is don't listen to them. Don't let them win. Follow your passion. No one should ever get to dictate who you love or what you love. Be authentic to yourself and go and chase that dream, and do it even more vigorously because someone else is doubting you and trying to make you feel bad about it. Use that as your power and your energy. Also, if you see it happening, you stand up for that person. You tell the bully that they need to back off and show that person that you have their back. Because 20 years ago, that wasn't the case. People just kind of accepted that it was normalized. It was normalized. But it's not. It's never okay for someone to put their energy towards making someone else feel bad. That is not okay. And I stand firmly in that. We need to create more inclusive environments. We need to build people up, and we need to celebrate people's differences and celebrate people's gifts. It was very challenging for me being a young man in an artistic sport that in North America is seen as girly. I traveled to Europe and Asia, and their gymnasts are held as kings. But in North America, because we're not ramming into each other and fighting and throwing balls across fields, we're shooting pucks across the ice and we have all of our teeth, we're not manly. But gymnastics is a hard sport. It's an incredibly hard sport. And what was really difficult was that I loved it so much, and I had, and it wasn't just the normal teasing. It was someone that went out of their way to every day make my life hell. And they would come up behind me and they would whisper things in my ear, and they would make fun of me in front of other people. And it made me afraid to go to school. And the environment that was created was not an environment that was inclusive. It wasn't an environment that built me up. It was an environment that was like deterring me and detracting me from sport. I hated that feeling of being on the high bar and swinging around and thinking about the thing that bully said to me that day, the word that he called me, all the homophobic, derogatory terms. It's unacceptable. And I experienced that. And my goal as I move forward in life is to ensure that there's resources and tools that we can make sure this doesn't happen anymore, and that we can stand up against it. One of the things that I get asked often from parents of young gymnasts or figure skaters or male dancers is like, my son is experiencing bullying at school. And it just breaks my heart that that young man should never have to face that. It's sad, but there are resources and there are tools. You need to tell a trusted adult, and you need to create allies. And if you ever see it happening, be an ally, be an advocate, stand up for that person. That's how we can change this cycle.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I want to bring Grace back in. Grace, maybe you can tell Kyle first before we talk about him. Talk about some of your favorite gymnasts that you enjoy watching right now.
Yeah, currently, obviously, Simone Biles is a big one, like every other gymnast. And then Ellie Black is a really big inspiration, especially since she's Canadian.
And what inspires you from Simone Biles? Like what do you love about watching Simone Biles?
She makes everything look so effortlessly, which is what every gymnast is trying to attain. And the stuff that she's doing is just at an insane level of difficulty.
Mm-hmm.
So Kyle,
I completely agree.
So Grace enjoys a lot of sports, and I just want to say two of her favorite broadcasters are baseball's Buck Martinez and you. So Grace, talk about what you enjoy about watching events and having Kyle commentate, and also watching old competitions of his. Obviously, I don't mean to age interview, but you weren't born when he won his 2004 gold medal.
Right.
But the beauty of things like YouTube is you've been able to watch. What do you enjoy about watching Kyle?
Yeah, well, initially I started by just hearing his voice and him commentating on gymnastics. Whenever I turned on the TV to watch gymnastics, whether it was the Olympics or any big competition, he was always the one doing the commentating. And then I learned from coaches and my friends, and just being passionate about the sport. Different people tell you to look at different competitions, and that's how I really started watching Kyle's routines and all the videos.
So what have you learned from watching his routines and just what he was able to do in competition?
Well, being a female gymnast, the male apparatuses and events are different. So it's just really neat to watch what they do and how they perform differently.
Kyle, what's it like for you that, your big win all these years ago is still being enjoyed by the up and coming generations?
It makes me feel very proud. I remember being a young gymnast and watching all the greats from the 70s and the 80s and even the 90s. Like Kim Zmeskal was my idol. I wanted to do three whip backs through to a double back, and that routine is iconic. And I've heard from a lot of young gymnasts in Canada and across the world that have been inspired by my performance because of the style and the artistry in it and the way I paid attention to those small details. And that is truly the legacy that I wanted to leave. To me, it wasn't about winning Olympic gold medals. It was about doing like this crisp, clean, stylish routine. And yeah, that makes me feel extremely proud. I also love to hear that you enjoy my commentary. It's something that I enjoy doing, and I hope that comes across in the screen. I'll let you know a little secret. I stand up when I commentate. I take my shoes off, and I'm like literally swinging my arms around, doing bar routines, doing high bar routines. I like land the landings with the gymnast. I'm sweating by the end, but I love it. And I feel this great responsibility because, Grace, you're watching that on TV. And I want to make sure that I'm shining a light on these incredible athletes, the things that they're doing right, so that you can take that home to your home gym and you can apply that to your gymnastics. I hope that I hope that I'm fulfilling that purpose in my commentary, and it's great to hear that you enjoy it.
Grace, why don't you go ahead with your questions for Kyle?
Yeah, to start off, I was just wondering, how did you mentally prepare and calm yourself before competing on such big stages such as the Olympics?
Well, I think I get more nervous now thinking about competing at the Olympics than I actually did when I was there. Because the reality is that you're in a bubble and you're so in control in that moment. It's all spinning around you very fast, but it's just you in that routine. One of the techniques that I used a lot was journaling. I love to write in notebooks, and I would just write my thoughts and my feelings and try to process them that way. I felt I got stuck in my head too much, and I would talk myself out of success. But if I could write down plans and I could write down my training plan and my warm-up plan and the positive keywords I need to focus on, that really helped me. It helped me extract it from my mind and put it onto a piece of paper. And to this day, I can't even travel for a vacation without writing down a big list of all the things I have to bring. Like I have to write passport, keys, wallet, phone, chargers, all that, because I get squirrely. I'm like, ah! So at the Olympics, I wrote down a list of all the things I had to bring to the gym with me that day. And I kept it in my bag, and it was mindless. Also, I stopped thinking about the outcomes. When I was a kid, yes, I laid in bed at night and I dreamed what it would be like to stand on the podium winning a gold medal. But the closer I got to the Olympics, the less I actually thought about that. And the more I thought about the routine. I thought about the way I was going to step onto the floor, the way I was going to hold my chest, my chin, the thoughts that would go through my mind, the way my arms would be. I spent hours playing with the angles of like my shoulder and where my thumb should be tucked in. I would ask my teammates, should my thumb be tucked in like this, or should my thumb be out a bit? And all the minutia, we would pick apart through video and with choreographers and with my coach and with everybody, just to make sure that every detail was polished. And so that's the biggest thing that I would say, is that write out your thoughts so that they're not rolling around in your head. Come up with plans and focus on what the performance looks like rather than the outcome. That's always been helpful for me to feel calm.
Yeah. My next question would be, if you had any mental blocks on any skills, how did you overcome that?
I was very lucky. I didn't have a lot of mental blocks. I've seen a lot of gymnasts forget how to do a shoot over on bars, or all of a sudden they balk on a back handspring. They can't figure out how to do that. The one skill I did struggle with a little bit was I couldn't do a double backflip without adding a full twist. So I would go round off backspring and then I do full in, and I couldn't do the double back. But how I dealt with that was I actually backed it up and I would go back to the basics. And so that's the great thing of gymnastics, is that when you get a mental block and you're struggling on a skill, that means you need to step back a few progressions. And so on that full twisting double back, that I couldn't do the double backflip without the twist, then I went back to round up backspring, big jump, and Kelly would spot me. Round up backspring, back layout. And I would just really focus on the stretch and the takeoff and using my eyes. So I think that's when you have a mental block, it's because there's something in your mind that's not trusting that you can do that element. And so you just have to back it up and build your way back up and give yourself permission. I think gymnasts, we are so hard on ourselves. We're not kind enough in our in our talk, our self-talk. And so just be kind, be like, okay, I'm struggling with this. And instead of forcing it, take a step back and make it fun and easy again. And then it will come back. Gymnastics is scary. Like I think of now about doing a def on high bar. That's a backflip with a 1.5 twist and catching again. I used to do it and I could perform it 99 out of 100 times. The thought of doing it right now on a bar 15 feet in the air and the thought of maybe missing it scares me so much. But when I was a gymnast, I felt like I had repeated it so many times that it became second nature.
Yeah, with mental blocks, it has to become like mind over matter. And I find myself even sometimes overthinking it, where I just have to let my body take control because I already know what I'm doing. Okay. And then what would you say is your favorite part of your gymnastics career? So was it competing, coaching, commentating?
I think my favorite part was competing when, when I had that momentum. I talked about it at the beginning, like that magnetic pull of the Olympics. I love that feeling in the month leading up where it became easy and I had a plan, and every day it was like get the work done and get out. I love that feeling of efficiency and power. I felt so strong. I was a superhero version of myself. And now in my life, I'm 39 years old. I look back at that time and I don't even feel like it was me in a way, but it was, and I can relive it, but it was the superhero version of myself. So I think competing, definitely. I do find that competing though is quite selfish. You're there for you. It's you and your routine. And I do enjoy the sense of community and the sense of service that I get by owning a gymnastics center and by doing commentary. I love that feeling of sharing with my community.
Yeah. Okay. And my final question is, what is your most memorable moment while competing in gymnastics?
My most memorable moment is that day in Athens. It was the moment when I stuck my final dismount. And the reason why it was memorable was because every cell in my body was committed to that landing. Like a bus could have come and hit me, Grace, and it would have bounced off of me. There was so much kinetic energy, like committed to that landing. I've never fought so hard for something in my life. And inside my body, I felt this reaction and I just yelled. And then I started cheering and clapping and I had no control. It was relief, it was joy, and it was satisfaction. And you know what? I didn't know the score. I didn't know the result. I didn't know if I had come first or if I had been fifth. But I knew in that moment that I had nailed the best routine of my life. And that's what I want young athletes to aspire to. It's not about the medals and the trophies. Yes, those are important and they're great and it feels really good. But aim for those satisfaction moments when you nail the best beam routine of your life and everything went exactly the way that you had planned and mapped out. That's the feeling that you will remember 20 years after your career is done. The gold medal, standing on the podium, I hated that moment. I was like, whoa, this is really awkward. I don't want to stand up here. Like everyone's looking at me. But that moment of power and control, that's what I remember the most.
Yeah. And watching your videos back, I can definitely see how that would be your most memorable moment. That was awesome.
Thank you very much, Grace, for those questions. Kyle, we're just about out of time here, but talk about opening your own gym and not even to focus on the high competitive athletes, but the grassroots and just getting kids into the sport.
Yeah, this is my place in the world now. As an athlete, I was destined to be an elite athlete and to chase that Olympic podium and the high performance lifestyle. But in my life after gymnastics, I am very focused on the grassroots of the sport. I want to grow this sport and I want to have fun and I want to teach basic gymnastics. That's my happy place. I love leading fun warm-ups for kids and I love it when they leave and their cheeks are rosy and they have a great time. I want to be the best part of someone's day. If we have a child that comes through our doors at my facility that does show that competitive potential, I send them to another gym in the city that can better serve them. For me, I never wanted to be a high level coach. I wanted to be a high level athlete. And as a business owner, I want to be an integral part of the community, and I want to impact as many people through the magic of gymnastics as I can. So that's what feels right.
Just finally, I want to ask you about part of the title of your book, The Positive Power of Sport, because what you're doing now, it's obvious that positivity is something that began when you were young and followed you through your gymnastics career.
Sport is a positive space. Sport can build you up. Sport can build friendships and relationships. Sport creates resiliency, confidence, and belief. I was so fortunate to be able to drive the bus, metaphorically, of my career. It was an athlete-driven, parent-coach supported career. And that's why I called the book like The Positive Power of Sport in the subtitle, because it has impacted my life in such a positive way. And my coach played a role in that. And so did my parents. They never questioned the dream. And Kelly, my coach, created this amazing, nurturing environment where we were a partnership. I got to play a role. He wasn't a dictator. He was a leader. And he helped me try to achieve my potential. And he nurtured me and he protected me. And he created an environment where I was able to thrive. And in gymnastics, I think we've seen and we're hearing so many stories now of athletes that grew up in toxic environments, that were coached out of power and out of fear. And that isn't leading to good things. This has really, really hurt a lot of athletes, and they're reconciling their lives and their careers, and they look back and they're not even proud of being Olympians. That is so sad to me. That is something we should be very proud of. And it's not sad because the athlete feels that way. It's sad because there was adults in charge who created that environment. And so I see my role now. And through this book, I hope that I can inspire athletes, coaches, and parents to create environments that are athlete-driven, parent-coach supported, and that we can have athletes lead the sport and feel like their experience was a positive one. That's my mission. I won't be done until that is the norm everywhere.
That's great. I forgot to ask you, you part of the broadcast team at the upcoming Olympics?
I will be a part of the CBC broadcast team. You will get very tired of me saying the words Simone Biles at the Olympic Games this summer. But yes, I'm psyched. I will be calling the games out of Toronto. The CBC is sending a very small team to Tokyo. And so I'll be in a studio calling it overnight in Toronto, which I think is going to be a fun adventure. But I can't wait to shine a light on these amazing athletes and their incredible hard work.
Any final words for a local athlete like Grace?
I've got a lot of words. But I think the parting advice and the parting thing I will say is that when the dust settles on your gymnastics career, I hope that you can look back and you can be proud of the way you handled yourself, the way you were a sports person, the way you treated your teammates, the way you showed up every day with a goal and worked towards that goal. And I think the most important thing is not whether or not you have bad days, because we all have bad days. The most important thing is how you rebound and how you respond to those bad days. Kelly always told me that one of my superhero powers was the fact that I could have a horrible day in the gym and want to quit, but overnight I would figure out a way to come back the next day and be better. And that was through writing, journaling, making plans, and trying to change my perspective. So I hope that you can do that in your own career. And I wish you all the best of luck.
Thank you.
Same thing to you, Grace. Any final words for Kyle?
Well, thank you for being such an inspiration in the sport of gymnastics, especially for me and other young gymnasts. I think what you're doing with your book and everything is amazing.
Thank you.
Grace, Kyle, thank you both so much for joining me today.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you.
Thank you again to my guests. I hope you enjoyed listening to this week's episode of the Total Sports Northumberland podcast.